Hi, I'm Stephen, and today I'm going to be showing you how not to make a candle. So not everything goes right all the time, and I thought I'd upload it anyway because I'm trying to do one video every 2 weeks, so 2 videos a month. But this one didn't go as planned. I planned to make a marbled candle because I thought candles are pretty popular, but I haven't seen anybody do a marbled candle, or it's not as many people, so I thought I'd try and do a how-to, but it didn't quite work. So I'm gonna kind of look at the footage that I've got and talk about why it didn't work, what I could have done better, and yeah, let's just get into it. Okay, so the first step is to get the candle wax. I've chosen tea lights because they're really cheap to purchase. Then I didn't have a problem with tea lights. In terms of the actual candle wax, it was good. It's a cheap thing to use. It's easier to cut down than if you just got a big slab. I mean, you could buy what candle makers actually use, which is like small little beads, but I didn't know where to get them. I just got this from a local shop and it seemed to work fine. So on that front, that worked. Then what you want to do is chop them up and fill your pot of choice kind of a bit over to what you want to fill it to, so then any air pockets will drain down. I'm going to put a couple more in here just to top it up a little bit more. And for the actual amount, it ended up being a little bit low, so I'd say add half again. So fill the container up till fully and then add another half on top, because the amount of air pockets was surprising. I looked at the wick from the tea light, and all it is some sort of cotton or just some sort of string. You can use wood as well if you have the right base for it. And I took one out and yeah, I coated this string I found with wax. Yeah, so that worked as well. The wick, it worked fine. The end result wasn't perfect, but that wasn't due to the wick. Then you want to evenly distribute it into how many colours you're going to use. I'm using it 2, so I've put half in 2 different pots. Yeah, I mean, the logic is there. It makes sense. That wasn't a problem with it. That's fine. I've also used duct tape to secure the wick at the bottom, and just used a piece of bamboo skewer to hold it at the top. Yeah, so when I was looking into it, everybody used a hot glue gun, and that's obviously how you should do it. The hot liquid just wax isn't going to stick to anything, so it just unstuck. That you think you need to glue it and create a really strong seal. And as for bambooing at the top, that would have worked if I had tied it instead of just trying to stick it on, or you need to stick it on pretty strongly. Right, so the method I'm using is called double boiling, as the steam and the water only boils to a certain temperature, meaning that you have a better control over the water. Once it's come to a boil, that's when you put the wax in. Remember to stir to make sure that it melts completely. Yep, all works so far. That's fine. Double boiling means that you're only getting around 100 degrees centigrade, or there around there. I'm not sure whether you're supposed to put gaps. Some did, some didn't, and as you can hear in the video, it is actually hissing out, but it does work. Yeah, I added that in after because I forgot to put the timer. I put the timer, but then I didn't record putting the timer. I was trying to get a rough estimate for the viewer, or you if you were trying to make one, trying to get a rough estimate of how long that would take, but I forgot to do it, and then it kind of went badly, so it didn't really work. Once all the wax is melted, you can put in your scents and your colouring. For scents, do as advised, but the general rule of thumb which I've found is 2 to 3 for indoor, and you can double that if you want to, if you're only going to have it outdoor. And as for food colouring, add till you're happy with the colour. Yeah, so the first problem was scent for me. If you use a scent like I kind of advised, then it would work fine, but I bought the wrong thing, and it was food essence, like flavouring essence instead of scent. So I ended up just making it so it would taste nice, which is useless with a candle. I've added the scent, and now I'm going to add the colour. And there is the second problem. For anybody that doesn't instantly realise what happens, that is a water-based dye in wax. The other one worked alright. I mean, you can see it to an extent. It didn't mix completely, but that's because I'd already realised it wasn't going to be perfect by that point. But yeah, water, wax, oil, they don't mix. Then you can pour the liquid into the mould. Okay, before it even pours, what I did, and I think it's quite a good idea to do, is heating it up first. And one second, on a test batch that I did, you get this kind of cloudy effect. You can undo that if you put a blowtorch or something hot over it, which you'll have to be careful doing. But you avoid getting what's called thermal shock, which means that the glass can smash. But yeah, if you heat it up, it might get a bit of a better seal onto the bottom and looks a bit nicer, because the glass and the wax cool down at the same rate. On top of this, I would have left it till it started almost getting a skim at the top of the wax. So then when it pours, it kind of it settles and it goes in easier, and it's a bit more solid. So when you're mixing it to create a marbled effect, it would be fine. And this is what we're about to see. This is where I realise that you can't use duct tape, gaffer tape, whatever. You can't use tapes to hold a wick. Yep, and there the wick goes. Also, never do it over a sink. Ideally somewhere outside, or if you can't, then put it on a rack in a larger dish, so when you're pouring, if you do have any spillover, which is another thing, you might want to convert it into a heat safe pouring glass. But definitely don't do it over a sink. Do it in something that can catch the liquid, and then you can deal with that instead of having to do what I did eventually. And mix slightly. And then you have to wait for it to cool down, and you should be good. Where's my wick gone? Yeah, mixing it isn't going to do anything at this point. Yeah, this is where I started being impatient and wanting to rush the cooling process. So I started off by doing a trickle of water so the water could get heated. Yeah, that's it basically, so the water can heat up and stay the same and kind of find an equilibrium so you don't get thermal shock. I've just realised when you let steam condense and you've let some out, it then creates a bit of a vacuum. Yeah, this is what I was talking about before, about letting whether you should put a gap in. I think if you're gonna either take it off straight away and don't put it back on once you've poured it, because then you end up letting wax while the pan and everything is still hot. drips down into it, and then you've got more stuff to clean instead of just boiling water, and you can just rinse that out and it's fine. You can just dry it and it's good to go. But what I did was I put it back on, which meant that as it cooled down, because it had been pushing gas out, because as water heats up it expands into gas, and then when it cools back down, the steam turns back into water, creating a vacuum. Okay, so it's not gonna go the right colour, so I thought I'd just tip the rest of this in, maybe the rest of the other one in as well, to try and make it go a bit. Yeah, so I decided to put more in because it wasn't going to work anyway, and I wasn't going to use that food dye for anything else, which I should have used wax dye. Then I just decided to put more in for some reason. So yeah, this is where I become even more impatient, so I decided to put boiling water in, so then I can put more cold water in at a quicker pace, because I'm trying to create the equilibrium, like making it by myself. I'm trying to create the equilibrium, so then I can speed up the process a little bit more, which you might as well just put it on a rack and forget about it for 24 hours or 12 hours. I just kind of went to sleep at some point and woke up and it was solid, so. And yeah, so that's just a shot of me ending up burning myself because I used a straw, that was it. I used a straw and it ended up having wax all over it. So I decided to seeing as plastic is carbon based, which isn't good for the environment, but I was just kind of curious to see, and I had a thing of water next to me, and I just wanted to see if that would light, thinking, oh well, it burns down to carbon, so you should be able to light it and see what happens with the wax. And instead, all that happened was I melted the wax and then dripped the hot wax onto my finger. No, I've filled that with wax. Yes, and this is where I realised that I have now blocked the sink with hot wax. Well, it's now cold, which is why it's not going anywhere. So yeah, I go and get a tool to fix the mess that I've just made. And that, for anyone who is curious, is called a U-bend. It stops any smell from, like, bathrooms have one, like a toilet, a sink, everything has one, so you don't get a sewage smell coming through. And there is all the wax. Yep, no water's going to go through that when it's completely full. Yeah, as expected. I don't really know what else I was expecting. Of course, when the wax drained down, it hit the water, like the water level, and that meant that it formed a really nice kind of solid shape that just formed perfectly around it. Yeah, and here is where I realised that the tea light is basically the same size as that. I find a little glass dish to put it in, and I put a wick from the tea light in after pushing a hole through it, and used that as a little test sample to see if for some reason that I've made it so it doesn't actually light. And as you can see, it does light. It's just a normal tea light at this point with a weird shape. and there's just one of the neighbour's cats coming and saying hello. But yeah, at first I thought this was where it had kind of turned into two different layers, but now that I look at it a bit more, that's not a layer, that's a liquid. That's just the food dye. All the food dye that I put in has just stayed there and not gone in. But yeah, if you use the right things and you wait a bit longer with the wax, so it's a bit more like a demi-solid or a demi-liquid, then it should work fine. But yeah, I just screwed up on this one. But the kind of principles that are in there are sound, and if you just kind of wait a bit and take your time with it, maybe do it a smaller test batch first, then it'll be fine and it should work perfectly. But yeah, that's it for this video. I know it's a bit different, but if you liked it, please leave a like and possibly a comment as well if you want to. I do have another channel which is an unboxing channel, which is even more different, but yeah, please check it out, and I will see you in the next video, which should be 2 weeks. Bye.